Chapter 74. A 75. Scathach and Shirou reached the Ryudo Temple. As they approached the mountain temple, Shirou asked, "Is this the completely safe place Shisho talked about? Is the floor tile here especially sturdy?" Scathach shook her head. "That's not it. This isn't the time for jokes. And you wouldn't joke at a time like this anyway." He smiled. "A great hero lives in my heart, and I won't be easily swayed anymore." She was taken aback as she turned to look at Shirou, staring at his plain and youthful face and the eyes that seemed to blaze with dazzling light. She gazed at those eyes, dazed. She had never seen such a beautiful and warm flame, an indescribable flame. Finally, she could only say, "Your eyes? They're truly beautiful. My eyes have always been the same. Your eyes are the real beauty," Shirou said with a smile. Beautiful, Scathach thought to herself. She was well aware of her own distortion and corruption, so how could she talk about beauty? And, "Don't call me Shisho anymore. I don't deserve it, and I'm not worthy of it." Shirou's bright eyes were filled with confusion as he asked, "Why would you devalue yourself like this?" "Because I lied to you," Scathach replied before turning on her heel and sprinting towards the temple. "Lying to people is nothing new for me," Shirou said nonchalantly as he caught up with Scathach. As they entered the temple, Shirou was taken aback by the immense power he felt being suppressed there. He looked around and noticed that the surrounding monks seemed unfazed by their arrival, going about their chores with peace and mercy in their expressions. "Shisho, what kind of place is this?" Shirou asked, his eyes filled with confusion as he followed her. "It's just a temple like any other," Scathach replied. "But there is a special individual here." "Special individual?" Shirou scanned his surroundings before settling his gaze on the monk in front of the main hall Buddha statue. The monk was kneeling, with long green hair like a Bodhi leaf, and an expression of mercy that seemed to transcend the statue behind him. Shirou was left in awe and disbelief, with a mix of surprise, amazement, and puzzlement on his face. "Is that Shakyamuni?" Shirou asked as he approached the main hall, only to be stopped by the head of the Ryudo Temple. P.S. Just like in Buddhism, many characters in the Nasuverse have achieved the title of Buddha. One of them is Shakyamuni, Saber-class servant. "The Enlightened One is meditating and must not be disturbed," the head of the temple said. Shirou stepped back and respectfully replied, "I won't disturb him." He was curious as to why Shakyamuni, a character in the Nasuverse, was here, and why he didn't intervene to stop Gilgamesh's violence. "The Enlightened One left a message for the Master before he began his meditation," the head of the temple said. "What message?" Shirou asked, eager to know. The head of the temple answered, "The Enlightened One said, 'The mind that abides nowhere is at peace.'" Shirou was momentarily taken aback before he smiled. He realized that it was Shakyamuni who had helped Tosaka Aoi overcome her obsession and caused Sakura to leave home. Although the same sentence was used, its meaning was different for different people. And at this moment, Shakyamuni was giving this sentence to Shirou. Shirou smiled and shook his head, then turned to the head of Ryudo Temple and said, "Please tell the Enlightened One that if he ever emerges from his meditation, I would like to share these words with him. An unwavering mind is the dwelling place of the awakened ones." The head of Ryudo Temple was taken aback by Shirou's words and studied him with a piercing gaze. He was not impressed by Shirou's youth, but also realized he was not to be underestimated. As he looked into Shirou's eyes, the head of Ryudo Temple was startled, but eventually nodded and left. Shirou returned to Scathach's side and said, "Shisho, no wonder you hinted for me to come to this place. This truly is the safest place." As he gazed at the meditators, Shirou added, "Who would have thought that the answer to this puzzle, after all my travels, was right in front of me?" He smiled without any trace of self-deprecation or bitterness. His warm eyes shone bright, and the smile on his face radiated warmth. "How did you know that Shakyamuni was here, Shisho?" Skathak smiled and replied, "I sense something special about this place. The one who has reached the truth of the world is meditating here. Even though there isn't a single aura leaking out, just the sight of it is enough to leave one awestruck." Shirou chuckled and replied, "It seems like my training is still far from complete. I'm just a novice and haven't noticed anything." Skathak shook her head. "Don't sell yourself short. The ability to sense this is only possible when one stands outside the world. If you were inside, no one would have been able to detect it. Not even Gilgamesh." "An outsider's perspective," Shirou sighed. Skathak gazed at Shirou's calm demeanor and sighed. "You suddenly don't seem like a child anymore." "I never was one," Shirou said calmly. "I know that, but please don't say things like that," Skathak implored. "It doesn't matter anymore," Shirou said with a shrug. "I'm an older soul reborn in this body. You could say it's like spirit descent magic or demon possession, but I'm still me, Fujimaru Shirou. So, Shisho, if you don't mind, I'd like you to continue teaching me. Do you want to become stronger?" "Yes," Shirou replied firmly. "I want to become stronger than anyone else. That way I won't be bullied and I can help those in need and pave a path toward freedom for them." Skathak shook her head. "But I don't have the qualifications to teach you anymore." "Why do you say that?" Shirou asked, a look of concern crossing his face. "You've been acting strange since earlier. Is something bothering you?" "I lied to you," Skathak admitted, a solemn expression on her face. "It wasn't Gilgamesh who forced me." "Ha ha 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 ha." Before Skathak could complete her words, the distinctive sound of Gilgamesh's laughter echoed from outside the temple. Skathak scowled as she unsheathed her dual spears, blocking Shirou's path. Gilgamesh strode into the temple, his ruby-red snake eyes locked onto the two of them, and sneered, "This king had a hunch you two would be hiding here." Shirou gazed at Gilgamesh, the smile on his face slowly fading into a cold, indifferent expression. The flame in his eyes burned even brighter. He stepped out from behind Skathak and greeted the king. "Hero, king of Uruk." "Huh?" Gilgamesh's eyes narrowed as he looked at Shirou. He couldn't help exclaiming, "It's as I suspected. The flame within you has been awakened. But instead of the blazing wrath that consumes everything, it's a pure and beautiful flame. Unbelievable." Unable to contain his excitement, Gilgamesh said, "This king has made his decision. Your flame, your eyes are unparalleled treasures that I must possess." Gilgamesh fixed his piercing gaze on Shirou, who was unperturbed. Shirou let out a faint smile and replied, "Even after all this time, King of Heroes, your self-righteous speeches still irritate me. I can never bring myself to like you." Shirou smiled at Gilgamesh and then activated Heroic Mortal. Golden Rule C, Charisma C, Collector C. "Did you copy this from me, the king?" Gilgamesh narrowed his eyes, with a dangerous gleam in them, then laughed out loud. "Good. You have a lot of guts, mongrel. No, calling you a mongrel is not enough to describe you now. You should be called a mongrel among mongrels. I will take those eyes of yours by order of the king." Behind Gilgamesh, the golden ripples rose higher and higher, and numerous noble phantasms slowly emerged. Shirou asked, "You're going to attack even in the territory of the Buddha?" Gilgamesh threw his head back in a fit of laughter. He gestured toward the meditating Buddha and declared, "Can an outsider dictate the laws of the king? Besides, the Buddha seeks to attain enlightenment not just for himself, but also for all sentient beings. Even if the king were to engage in violence here, the Buddha would remain steadfast in his meditation. Asking for the Buddha's help? It's as pointless as asking a stone for help." "That's right," Shirou concurred. The Enlightened One has already attained enlightenment and transcended the cycle of birth and death. The destruction of human reason is but a mere ripple to him." With that, Shirou projected a long sword and hurled it toward Gilgamesh. Clang! The sword struck Gilgamesh's armor but failed to leave a mark and was effortlessly deflected. Gilgamesh scowled. "You expect to defeat the king with that thing?" Shirou replied with a smile. "It's all I have." "Not running away?" Gilgamesh asked skeptically. "My path to freedom has been opened," Shirou explained. "I just wonder why you persist in harassing me. I'm just an ordinary person, even if my soul has descended into this body. Why do you keep staring at me like this? Why do you force me to participate in this Holy Grail War, even at the cost of your own glory?" Skathak tried to intervene. "Shirou, that is—" But Gilgamesh quickly raised his hand and summoned a massive sword that headed straight for Skathak, forcing her to temporarily retreat. He sneered, "The king is speaking to him. How dare you, a mere scrap from the Shadowland, interrupt?" His face was filled with disdain. Gilgamesh gazed at Shirou with a mischievous grin. "The king shall grace you with an answer, as your ugliness amuses me. Watching mongrels like you struggle and beg for mercy in hell is delightful, especially for one who's been reincarnated as a child." "So that's how it is," Shirou replied, his eyes narrowing. He summoned two swords through projection and held them tightly in his grasp, fixing a fierce gaze on Gilgamesh. "Do you truly wish to test me?" Gilgamesh sneered. "Boring. Dealing with a weakling like you will soil my hands. Mongrel belongs in the hell reserved for their kind, where they should meet their end." This is—" Shirou's eyes sharpened as he noticed the black mud seeping out of the cracks in the floor of the Ryudu temple. "All the world's evil!" Shirou exclaimed, shock evident in his voice. He quickly turned to flee. However, the black mud acted like a ravenous beast, lashing out and binding Shirou's body and limbs tightly like a thick cord. "Shirou!" Skathak cried out, her hand tracing runes in front of her. Before she could complete the runes, Gilgamesh summoned a giant sword and swung it, striking the runes down. Skathak's mouth filled with fresh blood as the runes disappeared. "Shisho!" Shirou yelled as he was consumed by the black mud. Skathak wiped the blood from her lips and fixed Gilgamesh with a look of deadly intent. But Gilgamesh had taken all his noble phantasms with him. "Why did you deceive him on my behalf?" Skathak asked, her voice cold. Gilgamesh merely sneered in response. "Putting away your noble phantasms, do you truly believe I won't kill you?" Skathak asked again, her tone threatening. "You can say what you want, but there's no need for this king to kill a person who is about to fade away," Gilgamesh said with disdain. Skathak remained silent, her phantom form rapidly approaching its limit. She took advantage of the moment when all the world's evil emerged from the Greater Grail to materialize. But now, "What will happen to him?" she asked. "If his human body touches that thing, he will naturally die," Gilgamesh explained. "He won't die. You just said you wanted to collect his eyes. You're serious," Skathak pointed out. "Then you just wait. Wait for the mud to swallow him. Or perhaps you can plead with that being from beyond to lend him a hand and request its mercy. Ha 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 ha." Gilgamesh glanced at the Enlightened One and taunted him before walking away from the temple. Skathak's gaze then shifted to the meditating Buddha. The Enlightened One remained unperturbed, with his eyes closed and a face full of mercy, much like the statue of the Buddha behind him. She looked back at the black mud that had engulfed Shirou. She knew she couldn't go near it, for if she did, with her twisted and corrupt mind, her phantom form would be corroded and turn into an altar. "What's happening here?" Kiritsugu muttered, his expression showing confusion. It was 6:37, and the sun should have already risen above the horizon, even though it was autumn. However, there was no sign of the sun. Instead, the sky remained pitch black, like a heavy curtain, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Something incredibly strange had occurred at the church. A towering black structure had appeared. Just one glance at it was suffocating. The city was already in turmoil from the attack by Berserker the previous night, which had destroyed many of its old buildings. While these structures were a hindrance to the city's modern development, they were also a part of Fuyuki City's history and had great historical significance. Kiritsugu felt compelled to investigate the strange tower that had appeared. He suspected it was created by a servant, and the presence of a suspicious caster only reinforced this belief. With the ominous aura surrounding the tower, Kiritsugu decided to bring Artoria along for the investigation. But a statement from Irisveil left him deeply concerned. "Be careful," she warned. "That thing is dangerous and strange." Irisveil's health had also declined since the tower's appearance. She had become weak and pale, and Kiritsugu was forced to send her to Maya for medical attention. Knowing the risks, Irisveil was determined to increase his chances of victory. To this end, Irisveil gifted him with King Arthur's Avalon, taken from her own body. Despite his worries for Irisveil, Kiritsugu nodded in agreement and set out for the church with Artoria. He took a defensive position, observing from a distance with his sniper rifle, while Artoria charged the entrance. Artoria had low expectations of Kiritsugu, but as long as he didn't force her to kill a child, she was content. As she approached the church, she was confronted by a monstrous assassin guarding the entrance. The creature's demonic appearance shocked Artoria, causing her to exclaim, "What are you?" The 100-faced assassin let out a shrill cry, its more than 100 heads all wailing in unison. Artoria prepared herself for battle as the monster lunged at her. She fought back with her sword. "What is that?" Kiritsugu frowned, his confusion evident in his eyes as he held onto his sniper rifle. Tick! Tick! The room was filled with the echoing sound of dripping water. Kiritsugu's attention was suddenly captured by a loud bang that reverberated from the ceiling. He narrowed his eyes and observed as the ceiling of the deserted commercial building collapsed, unleashing a torrent of black mud that engulfed him in an instant. Clang! Artoria and the abomination clashed swords, despite the assassin losing its own noble phantasm, delusional illusion. It's also regaining its full capabilities, and yet Artoria still had the upper hand. The battlefield was slowly shifting towards the Black Tower. "That's enough, assassin!" Kirei called out from in front of the tower. The assassin obeyed and retreated to Kirei's side. Artoria, wielding an invisible holy sword, asked with disbelief, "That's assassin? You turned assassin into a monster?" "Does it matter?" Kirei replied with a smirk. "King Arthur, I present to you the Holy Grail you have been searching for." He gestured to the ominous black tower behind him. Artoria scowled. "What are you talking about? That evil presence cannot be the Holy Grail. You seek to deceive me." "It is exactly what I am saying," Kirei chuckled. "The Holy Grail is before you. Whether you wish to destroy it or make a wish, the choice is yours." Kirei led the horde of one-bodied assassins away as Artoria gazed at the black tower in confusion. "Is that really the Grail?" she wondered aloud. A mysterious voice called out to her, "Make a wish to me. Any wish can be fulfilled." Artoria looked around warily, trying to locate the source of the voice. "Who are you?" "I am the Grail." "You can talk?" Artoria turned towards the black tower. "Make a wish to me. No matter what the wish may be, it can be fulfilled. Whether it's to revive Camelot or bring back the Knights of the Round Table, even the person who leads you to the path of the king can be brought back." Artoria raised her holy sword, determined. "You evil thing, trying to attack my heart. I will destroy you." "Do you really want to destroy me? Your wish is within reach. The resurrection of Camelot and all those who have died can be resurrected. Do you really want to betray them, kill them again, and betray your oath?" She hesitated. I... Her holy sword trembled in her hand. Tormented by the soul within the world of mud, Kiritsugu saw the mud transform into his wife, Irisveal, and gradually began to embrace his version of justice. Killing a few to save many, he continued this pattern endlessly until, in the end, only he, his wife, and his daughter remained in the world. To escape the control of the mud, Kiritsugu reluctantly shot his wife and daughter and awoke in the real world. He realized that the Black Tower was the true form of the Grail and that it was far from just. The justice he sought was not there. With tears in his eyes, he used the scope of his sniper rifle to observe Artoria standing in front of the Grail with her holy sword. Raising his hand with the command seals, Kiritsugu used both seals to issue the command, "Destroy the Grail, Saber!" Justice was not to be found here, and Kiritsugu, without hesitation or regret, released both command seals in one go. The holy sword, seemingly controlled by a force beyond her, surged forward, and Artoria's body was forcibly attacking the Grail. "No! This can't be happening! The Grail! Camelot!" Artoria cried out in despair. As she watched the light that was coalescing around the holy sword in her hand, she swung it towards the Grail. Tears streamed down her blue eyes. She had abandoned her glory to fulfill her sorrowful wish, even though she hated it. But did she have to destroy it herself? "No!" she screamed. The light roared, and King Arthur destroyed her own wish with her own hands. Kiritsugu picked up his sniper rifle, intent on escaping when he saw a black hole in the sky above the holy church. "What is that?" Kiritsugu's face filled with shock. He could barely make out what he was seeing, but what he thought was a hole was in fact a true void. The Grail War had not been truly summoned since its inception, and the accumulated magical energy over 240 years had turned into a massive vortex. This was the true nature of the black hole. The Lesser Grail, developed by Ainsworth, was merely the key to unlocking the hole, as well as the device used to maintain its stability. Normally, the hole would only be opened once the Lesser Grail had absorbed enough servant souls. Thus, in the present situation, where only one servant had died, it was theoretically impossible for the hole to be opened and the Grail to be revealed. However, the evil housed within the Greater Grail was prematurely unleashed due to the actions of Gilgamesh, and the interior of the Grail had already established a connection with the real world, thus opening the Grail. Unbeknownst to Kiritsugu, he made a grave mistake by commanding Saber to destroy the Grail, instead of using her noble phantasm to destroy the hole in the sky. Without a vessel to control it, the Grail could no longer be closed, and conventional methods were now ineffective in stopping the contents of the Grail from spilling out. The black mud, known as all the world's evil, possessed the power to destroy all life. At that moment, it was like a waterfall pouring down from the sky above the church. It spread out from the center of the church to the surrounding area, causing a sea of fire wherever it passed. It was like hell. "No! No!" Kiritsugu cried out as he threw down his sniper rifle and rushed down to the ground floor. How could this be? How could this have happened? This wasn't supposed to be the outcome. His participation in the war was to save, not to destroy. Kiritsugu's justice was to destroy the few for the sake of the many, to destroy for the sake of salvation, not for destruction's sake. He was willing to sacrifice everything to attain his desired justice, but it wasn't supposed to be like this. "No! No, 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 boo!" he shouted as he dove into the sea of fire. The darkness continued to spread as if all evil was converging on Miyama with the church at its center. Artoria, being at the center of the darkness, was the first to be consumed by the black mud. "You wish to destroy me, but I will still grant your wish," declared the mud with a will of its own. Artoria's world changed as she was transported to a bright, vivid world filled with light. "King!" King Arthur! It's King Arthur! As Artoria was surrounded by people calling her name, worshipping her and yearning for her, she was reminded of the beginning days of Camelot. She couldn't believe it. Had Camelot truly been resurrected? Step by step, the crowd pushed her toward the palace. "King, you've returned!" they cried. Amongst them were the 12 knights of the Round Table: Lancelot, Gawain, Geraint, Gareth, Galahad, Gaheris, Bedivere, Agravain, Tristan, and her court wizard, Merlin. Tears flowed down Artoria's blue eyes as she gazed at these familiar figures. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke up. "Back already? Why are you crying? Were you bullied?" It was Guinevere, looking at Artoria with kind eyes. "Guinevere!" Whispering Guinevere's name, Artoria felt tears streaming down her face. Despite this, she managed to show a smile. "Everyone, I'm back. The so-called heroes, the so-called kings, they are all just like this, fragile like a blank piece of paper. Subjects, heh." As the mud began to dissipate, a dark figure emerged from within. The figure of a swordsman appeared. Her form was ominous and foreboding.